taking the time out to join us in reviewing the day of May 1st and the activities of the rally and march. I'm very grateful that you came out.
My uncle was Robert Moore. He was 6837 of my family with the 1014 number. My cousin and my uncles, they had all earlier numbers in their extended family. So we're all longshoremen. My son Jeremiah Moore was shot and killed by the Vallejo police in 2012. He was autistic and his hands were in the air and they just shot him. So we're here to try to get some justice and support from the union because it was unjust. It was tragic and it was unjust, and we supported, we loved the support we got on May 1st, but our court date is December 16th, 2016. So we're going to need as much help and support as we can get. Yeah.
What court?
It could be in Vallejo, I think, or Sacramento. We don't know yet. So we've got a court date 2016, about a year away, year and a half. And that will be 4 years, 5 years to his killing. It's taken that long to get justice and to even get a court date. So we really want support from the union, and we need help because it's a big issue for us, obviously. He was autistic. He's Asperger, and he was a threat to no one. He was loved by many and a threat to no one. I'm sorry I get so emotional because we miss him. So if you can, help support us and keep him. You know, I hear a lot of this going on and a lot of things, but I very rarely hear about my son. Very rarely, lawyers told us to keep quiet and everything else, but you folks can mention whatever you want. And if you look at BuzzFeed.com, 3 shootings in Vallejo, if you look that up, you'll see all the statistics of the Vallejo Police Department and everything else. They need to be brought to justice. They need to be brought down. They have this one police officer who shot my son, shot 3 people that same year, and they promoted him to a detective. That's how they get him off the streets. They promote him to a detective to take him off the streets. But in that 1 year, he shot 3 people. And now they promote him. So we're out to get justice. We want him off the force. We want him brought to justice. We want him to go to jail and everything else because there is no reason whatsoever to shoot Jeremiah. If they have stun guns and they have rubber bullets and everything else, you do not have to shoot to kill. If you notice on that side of the police cars, we used to be, when I see a lot of people here, when we grew up, it said protect to serve.
Yeah.
Is that gone now? Look inside the police cars. You don't see that anymore. Pretty soon you're going to see shoot to kill. When did they replace that? When did they replace protect to serve to shoot to kill? I want to know. I would have taken some action when my sons were taken if we would have known the police are out there to shoot to kill. And that's what we're saying. They're not out to really help you or anything else. They're just right there. And he was a naked man in a doorway. We got 3 different versions of why they shot him. They were all lies. How can a naked man with no gun be a threat to you with his hands in the air and then they shoot him? We don't get it. So we're here to ask for your support. Thank you very much.
The next speaker, Rick Perez, father of Petey Perez.
Yeah, it just seems that the police are raised by the same person that raised that kid that shot all those people in North Carolina. They have no respect for life or nothing like that. If you see the video on my son, you can see how the cop lost his cool. It's on Justice for PD, or it's on OscarGrantCommittee.org. It's a little bit graphic, but you still see, if you read what the DA said about what occurred that night, he stated that he shot 1 shot, and my son lunged at him, and then he shot 2 more. Well, the video shows that it bang, 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 just like that, and my son's gone. It's hard for me to even think about it, but these guys are, it's hard to get that indictment and stuff. I was lucky to go to a town hall meeting, and I met up with Melinda Haig, who is the U.S. Attorney for Northern California. Her boss is Loretta Lynch. Hopefully that pans out for me. She said she'd review it and see what's going on. These like I say, the DA is lying about what's actually in the video. The officer contradicted himself at the coroner's inquest, and also the DA's statement about what happened to my son. It also contradicts what was first said about it all. It's hard to talk about, and I'd like to thank Clarence, Jack, and Stacey all for allowing me to speak tonight. All the ILWU, my brother's ILWU man, and we need support. We need everybody behind us, just like Mr. Moore does. These cops are getting away with too much. It's almost impossible to indict them. I'm working my damned hardest to, like I said, with the district attorney, the United States attorney, to work at it, and I just happened on that one by luck. I don't know, I could go on and on. I'm losing words right here, but you guys are a big union, and you guys got a lot of power, and it's hard for me to dog any union except for the police union. The police union is out there, they're influencing politics and stuff like that, and all this militarization of them are, why do they have to have sergeants and lieutenants and captains and whatnot? Why don't they have district managers and things like this? And then they're the only ones that bring the fatal component to every situation. Mr. Moore's son was unarmed. He was naked. Where was he going to hide his weapon? My son was unarmed. The officer knew it. My son initially cooperated with him. He was frustrated with the cops because the cops constantly disrespect everybody in the neighborhood and expect you to obey all their lawful orders. Well, their lawful orders ain't necessarily a good thing. And my son also was intoxicated, so I'm not proud about that part, but he just got up and walked away. And here's where the confrontation started. The cop had my son on the ground. He couldn't handcuff him because he was laying on one of his arms when the cop threw him on the ground. So if you watch the videotape, it's on, like I said, it's on Justice for PD or OscarGrantCommittee.com. It's on Richard PD Perez. It's on YouTube all over the place. PD's Life Mattered. It's on YouTube on that. Once you click on one of them, you're going to see them all. Some of it's graphic. I can't watch it, but you guys could watch it. You can make your mind up for yourself. I definitely need support. I need people behind us, just like Mr. Moore needs people behind him. We can't allow this to happen no more. These cops are just taking the law into their own hands, and there's other ways of dealing with this stuff. The officer that shot my son had no non-lethal stuff with him because it was too cumbersome for him to carry. He had no taser, he had no billy club, he had no mace or pepper spray. He had none of that. He had a canine unit, but he parked his car around the corner and he snuck up on all these guys just to confront them. There's no reason for that. If he wanted to disperse a crowd that was in front of the store, all he had to do is pull up in front of the store and show his presence. They would have left. Nobody, guys my son was 24 years old. Nobody wants that kind of problem. In fact, he was on his way home, walking home, and the cops singled him out. And the confrontation started, and now I got to watch my wife cry every day and every night, several times. She calls me up at work crying. And I want to cry every day too, but I try to be a little stronger than that. But it really hurts. My son was working for us. We have a family business, and he was doing real good. He was starting to mature, starting to get everything together, and now it just all come to an abrupt halt. So again, like I said, I need all you guys' support, and thank you guys for allowing me to march in your march. Thank you for, we would have made the front page if it wasn't for all the vandals and the media. They put up all the broken windshields on the front page, and they put us on page 7 in the San Francisco Chronicle. We would have made the front page, and I was right there front row with my sign, Justice for Petey, and that would have been beautiful. But it'd be more beautiful if these cops would behave and quit shooting our youth. Thank you.
I'm Oscar Grant's uncle, affectionately known to the community as Uncle Bobby. Thank you. First, thank you, Daryl. Yes. This day here is a real important, significant day in our lives. And I have to say, there were 3 reasons why this day happened today in 2011. And that is, we had the protest that took place concerning my nephew Oscar Grant that was killed on the Fruitvale Bark platform on January 1st, 2009. And the protest was continuous. We had also the rebellion that took place. So the ideal smell of smoke continued to linger during all these protests, which was significant. But also what I thought was really critical and most important was when I actually came here to the ILWU and I shared with them what happened to Oscar Grant. And the union took a vote and they began to support the family and they began to organize. And next thing I know, I was going to the Alameda Labor Council and then the Oakland Labor Council, I believe it's called, San Francisco Labor Council, Alameda County Labor Council. And with the union, ILWU, the support of Jack himself and the membership, as well as Clarence, organization began to take place. And as we know, on 10/23/2010, the ILWU stepped out and shut down the ports here, which was really significant in making this day, the day that it is for us today, a very, very meaningful day. And I say that because on that day, this officer here, Johannes Minsley, who murdered Oscar Grant on January 1st, was found guilty. He was found guilty. He was found guilty on July 8th. As we know, today is July 8th.
That's right.
In 2011. And I say what's real significant about that is because I came here asking for your support. You hear what I'm saying? And the union embraced us and did what Jack and Clarence I hear say all the time, exhibited the power that lies within the union. And the union stepped to the plate, shut down the ports. They had a significant aspect in the decision of this officer here being incarcerated. He would have did longer, but I'm here to say to Petey, we met Linda Haig. We sat with her in the meeting. And this system is broken. We have to be clear and understand that if by chance, in some places, a grand jury decide to indict an officer, they still have to get past the district attorney. But if by chance we can get past the district attorney, like in ourselves, where the district attorney represented us in a weak fashion, but we were able to still secure an involuntary manslaughter charge and a gun enhancement charge, we still got to get past the jury. But if by chance we can get past the jury, like I said, in our case, the jury did rule in our favor, which we were extremely grateful for. We didn't like the involuntary manslaughter, but what I'm getting at is that if by chance you get past the jury, you got to get past the judge. All across this country, cases are being thrown out because the judge claims that the district attorney erred in some motion. In our particular case, the district attorney told us on day one, and I want you to hear this and how important it is that families are embraced by unions across this country. But on day one, the judge told us that if we don't make all of you go away, he'll make the case last 5, 7, or 10 years until you all go away. a straight attack on our First Amendment right to speak to the very injustice. In the middle of the trial, District Defense Attorney Michael Raines took the silhouette, similar to this, showing the actual body of Oscar and where the bullet went through his back, letting everybody see, inflicting pain, and tossed it on the table and said, let's name this KKK. And the judge accepted it. No rhyme or reason, no chronological order, no alphabetical order, but named KKK. And on the very last day, Judge Robert Perry told us that he felt that this was not about black and white. It couldn't be about black and white. We just gave you a black president. This is what the judicial figure said, that we just gave you a black president. And what I'm telling you is just factual in the system of this criminal justice system. But he was so troubled by you coming back with a guilty verdict that he said he erred. Now, Mesley claimed he erred with his taser, but now we have the judge saying he erred in his instructions to you on how to render a verdict. And he said he was so troubled with that he could not let the gun enhancement charge stand. The significance of that is this: the gun enhancement charge was an automatic 10 years. The involuntary manslaughter on the low side was a 2-year. So we knew at the minimum we had 12 years for this officer to do. But because the judge claimed he erred, he took it and he said he got to toss it out. He tossed out your verdict. Now he's only sitting on 2-year sentence to prison. But he said, oh, I'm not done yet. I'm going to give him 2 days served for every day in jail, reduce his time down to 11 months.
Ooh.
But he said he's not done there. I'm going to put him on non-revocable parole. I just want you to see the system. And what the judge did, non-revocable parole means that I'm a felon, I killed someone, but the judge likes me. He puts me on non-revocable parole. Upon my exit out of prison or jail, if I don't have no contact with the police for 1 year, my felony falls off record, I can get my gun back and I can reapply at the agency that I quit or was terminated from. And as you know, many of you, if you was in the movement, you can remember when Johannes Mesley sought to get his job back. And we protested, and you came out. And the community came out and spoke to that. And Bart remembered that smell of smoke. They remembered the sound of the protest. And they remembered what the ILWU did. And they decided not to hire him. So he's down south somewhere working. But my point is this: what happened here in this union was so significant that we had countries, China, railroad system, sent a letter here in solidarity with the ILWU here. The French consulate, if I'm saying it right.
Japan.
Okay, I'm sorry, not China, it was Japan. But the French consulate also, the union workers had sent a letter. I forget who was in, I forget their name. What I'm getting at is that what happens here goes the world. And so we as a family are so grateful to Clarence, Jack, Stacey, and of course, yes, Howard, for supporting the families, standing with the community, and wielding your power to show this world that there has to be real freedom and justice. Otherwise, there will be what you call an economic shutdown through the labor. I believe the only way that families will ever truly get justice, what happened with the ILWU and the community here has to be reduplicated across this country. And when we see unions connecting with one another, supporting the community and speaking to this injustice and these heinous acts that we see, only then will we see real change. And I'm going to say this and be quiet. Right now in Cleveland, they're having the Black Lives Matter conference. And there have been several panels submitted that center around how to get labor involved. To me, the movement is beginning to progress in the direction that it should go, that I believe that will bring a real change within this system when labor align with community and community align with labor to bring about that change. You know, I want to say thank you to my sister here who worked for Bart. Yuri, that's right. Yuri, you know, we again as a family, thank you for supporting us and standing with us. I mean, we're talking about a Bart employee that put her, what I believe, job on the line to speak to the very injustice in supporting a family that had lost a loved one to the very agency she worked for. To me, that is power.
I'm going to hand the mic over to Howard Keeler. He is a retired ILWU member.
Just a couple of incidents in the not-so-recent history of ILWU Local 10 that represents how Local 10 longshoremen historically regarded the cops. In the 1970s, two black longshore families who had moved to Richmond were threatened by racists, probably the Klan. Local 10 did not appeal to the Richmond cops to protect those families, but took their own measures. No one trusted the Richmond police, who were notoriously racist. Local 10 longshoremen organized to physically protect these two families. For about 6 weeks, longshoremen and their friends stationed themselves outside the two residences. They were properly equipped with the necessary technical devices. No further threats against these families took place. Since 1934, no cops were ever allowed to set foot inside the Local 10 hiring hall. In the early 1980s, two federal agents in suits walked into the hiring hall during dispatch and announced that they were going to question longshoremen about an alleged theft on the piers. Several longshoremen physically assaulted the cops in suits, beat them up, and threw them out. You didn't read that in the press, I'm sure. After weeks of approaching longshoremen at their homes, the federal agents were unable to find any witnesses. Nobody saw anything, even though hundreds of longshoremen were in the hall at the time. In response to your unspoken question, yes, I knew who were the longshoremen who took this action. Disrespect for and distaste for the cops has deep historic roots on the San Francisco waterfront. Thank you.
I want to first of all thank the organizers, Labor Fest specifically, for putting this particular forum together. It's important to discuss lessons learned. I'm so pleased that Howard made reference to the history of ILWU as it relates to, he was talking about a brother by the name of Roosevelt Presley, who resided in the Contra Costa area and who had crosses burned on his lawns, shots fired at him and his family. I'm speaking tonight as a past Secretary Treasurer, Executive Board member. And in my conversation with Brother Leonard Riley tonight, I couldn't help but think about Sister Bree Newsom. Do people know who she is? She's the young African-American woman who, after the day that Obama sang Amazing Grace, went up on the Capitol grounds and brought down that Confederate flag. Yeah.
That's right.
I'm speaking now for myself, but as an ILWU member and a person who's been involved in the black liberation struggle for over 40 years. I was very dismayed. I'm not going to mince my words. I was very dismayed by some of the remarks that I heard from Brother Riley about what he thought would happen if there was some kind of action called. I'm talking about solidarity action on the part of the Local 1422. We all have to be mindful of the fact that this is not the first time that there's been an attack on people of his membership in Charleston, South Carolina. Walter Scott's brother was in his local. There was a longshoreman who lost his son and aunt one of the martyrs, two of the martyrs, are related to members of his local. And I understand that there were even more than that. One of the things that's posed in this booklet called Labor Fest is an injury to one, an injury to all, the lessons of May Day 2015 ILWU Local 10. I want to tie these lessons into, with respect to this conversation that we had with Brother Leonard Riley tonight. I don't want anyone to misunderstand me. I have a great deal of respect for Brother Leonard. I've worked with him on a number of campaigns and been in his union hall. But one of the lessons to be learned is that workers, and particularly longshore workers, have a great deal of power. And that's the reason why the Pacific Maritime Association didn't fight us when we said we wanted to have May Day off. Because in my opinion, had they not agreed to do it, we were going to do it anyway. Then the employer would have had to worry about not only the day shift, but the night shift. But there's something else too. The employer would have had to come out and say, we disagree with what the longshoremen are doing with respect to Walter Scott. They don't want to do that. And I submit to you the same kind of reaction would have taken place, in my opinion, with regard to Local 1422 and the massacre that took place in Charleston. There's such a thing called timing. And I submit to you that the ILA 1422, if they would have called for a national day of mourning for longshore workers all over the country, they would have been surprised. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but the historical facts, I believe, bear me out. On strike shut it down, April 4th, 2011. ILWU Local 10 members, that's the date that, well, no, yes, Dr. King was assassinated on April 4th. We took an action in support of We Are One, the workers in Wisconsin, the public sector workers. We shut down for 24 hours without the PMA. That's right, we were the only union that did it. PMA threatened us with temporary restraining orders, injunctions, and all the rest of that, which they dropped. Historically, in this country, when it comes to the civil rights movement, blacks in the trade union movement have played a very critical role. Kenny Riley represents one of the leading longshore leaders, African-American longshore leaders in the country. Isn't he connected with the International Dockers Conference?
Yeah.
Tremendous amount of power. If the longshore workers had been called upon, and it's not too late, but if we were called upon to take a national day of solidarity, where we could have a discussion about white supremacy, structural racism, income inequality, austerity against the working class, this would make a tremendous impression on the world. And we got that power to do it. What can they do? I hope it's not too late, but the longer we wait, the greater the opportunity not to do anything, in my opinion. Now, Local 10 took the initiative on the May 1st action. And what was particularly interesting about that is that Sister Stacey Rodgers, who was a first-time executive board member, and an African-American woman who had taken such a resolution to the executive board where it passed unanimously. It was a white rank and filer who wrote the amendment calling for the May shutdown that was attached to her resolution. that tells me is that black and white rank and file unity is critical for the working class. And when we don't do that, it opens the door for the neo-Nazis and all of the other reactionary manifestations that we've seen with people justifying that flag. These are working class folks. Left with no real progressive leadership, revert to some of the most base and reactionary forms of ideology. As Dr. King said, all they've got is Jim Crow. White skin privilege, and losing more of it every day. So, in conclusion, lessons learned, rank and file unity poses a threat to the bosses. Here it is, 2015. PMA, no resistance, because we were going to do it anyway. We got that power, but what happens when it's only demonstrated by Local 10? And everybody else on the longshore ranks is quiet. What that does is to put ILWU Local 10 in a position of being isolated. The other lesson to be learned from the May Day action is the importance of labor and community, because we all come from the community. And we need to recognize the need for labor in the community, and that's the disconnect. And I want to end with this question. Why hasn't there been any letters of solidarity and support, condemnation, and condolence from Trumka, from the ILWU leadership, and the rest of labor? Do they condone this action? Are they afraid to speak out? What is it? All of the above. Thank you.
And now, Jack, we'll hear from Brother Jack Kamen, retired.
I just want to draw a couple lessons from our May Day action. The first is all militant solidarity actions in the ILWU generated from below, bottom up. And if you turn around and look at that picture up there, that's Henry Schmidt leading the 1934 picketers. That's who this room is named after. He was a rank and filer in the strike. He didn't get a lot of headlines, but he was a rank and file organizer. And that's what Stacey Rodgers is. The reason that May Day happened is because Stacey, who was actually opposed to the contract, this last longshore contract that passed by almost 90%, you know what I'm talking about when you go into negotiations and you're the lone wolf fighting against a concessionary contract. That's what Stacey was up against, but still she went into the executive order and fought for this, and she won. Like Clarence said, it was unanimous, and it was amended, and that's because Stacey took the initiative. Okay, bottom line, let me tell you another recognition for bottom up is Sean Graham. Sean Graham headed up our security. You want to know why there was no infantile disorder of window breaking and car burning and nonsense like that? Is because Sean headed up our security of Local 10 members to make sure that that didn't happen. And the important lesson that we got to stop police terror was forefront in the whole march and rally. Thank you, Sean. Josh Williams. I cannot forget Josh. He's a rank, but he's not active like me. He's retired. Josh Williams. Josh came to this unit in 1959. He got registered. And he heads up our drill team. So when you saw on the video loud and proud, Local 10 members marching. He was the one heading that up. He does it all the time. Bottom up, not top down. And that's what made this successful. As a matter of fact, if Sean wants to speak later on during the discussion, we can talk about how actually we didn't get support from the officials, period. We didn't get support. And in this room, which is named after Henry Schmidt, this is where the anti-apartheid action was organized in 1984. Bottom up, not top down. In fact, the president at that time, in an arbitration, and it's on the record, agreed with PMA that this was an illegal action. But we did it anyway. Just like the students in the South sat in at lunch counters to integrate them, they broke the laws. But that's what needs to be done. If you're going to make advances, you've got to break the unjust laws. And so what really resonated, I think, with the May Day action is that in the entire country, I think one person in the video spoke to this, the labor movement was not harnessed behind the social protest. It was just Local 10. And I want to echo Clarence's criticisms of Charleston because I think they're in a unique position. This is one of the first longshore unions in the country. After the Civil War, they organized into a union. They were slaves loading ships before the Civil War that started in Charleston at Fort Sumter. But after that Civil War, they organized into a union and demanded wages. So they've been a leading component of the Charleston community for years. They're in a position to play a leading role still. And they did. In 1999, they struck against a ship that went to a non-union pier. And we supported that struggle. That was known as the Charleston Five. And the day before they put up that picket against this non-union company, they marched on the Capitol in Columbia, 50,000 strong, to protest the Confederate flag. This was in 1999, and still the government of South Carolina did not bring the flag down. So they're in a position to do something today, and I think Local 10 is in a position to do something. We've been the spark plug for many of the action before. I remember during the recent wars that are still going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, we were called on to do an action in Local 10, just in the Bay Area. I said, you know, what needs to be done is not just Local 10, but the whole West Coast. We need to get all the ports behind us. In this situation today, I think we need a bottom-up action. It could come from Local 10 to call on all longshore locals in the country to say no to police terrorism, to say no to these killings that are going on. And the racist killings, not just the police killings, but this Nazi kid who was carrying the Confederate flag and went into the Emmanuel AME Church and massacred people. The Charleston brothers and sisters are in a unique position. They could issue a clarion call for longshore workers across the country to stop work for one day, a day of mourning. We're sick and tired of the racist killings that are going on in this country. That's what needs to be said. The second lesson is the role of the police. Howard touched on it before. The police, not only in Richmond, but in our society, are here for one reason. They're here not to protect and serve us. They're here to protect capital, big business. They're here to protect those that have the wealth in this country, the increasing disparity of wealth. The Occupy movement called it the 1%. That's who they represent, so that the laws in this country are made against labor. If you set up a picket line, you can't block the gates. That's because they want to keep production moving. The cops are there to make sure you don't have picket lines where scabs can get through. It's happened time and again. So in the labor movement, we see it firsthand, the role that police play as anti-labor. In the ghettos, in the black and brown communities, they're an occupying force. And they become exponentially more of an occupying force by the fact that they are being militarized now. They look like an occupying army, not occupying police in the black and brown neighborhoods. So this is the same police force. And yeah, we have a black president. We have, we had, or we still do, a black attorney general who every time an issue of police killing or police racist actions come before the Supreme Court, every time they've sided with the police against the victims. So, you know, the problem is, and the ILWU recognized it a long time ago, the police and the system are against working people. Black, white, whatever color you are, they're against working people, period. And so in 1934, I think Steve said at the beginning of this program, the reason Labor Fest is celebrated in July is because we had a maritime strike on the West Coast. Workers were killed up and down the West Coast by police, 2 here in the city of San Francisco. And to this day, ILWU codifies that in our Constitution. We do not allow police to become members of our union. They're not part of the working class, is what that constitutional provision states. One last thing on police is the former police chief here in Oakland, Anthony Batts, just got fired in Baltimore. We got rid of him in Oakland here a few years ago. But you know, the funny thing is the reason he got fired by the mayor is not because Freddie Gray was killed by the police, murdered in the van. That's not why he was fired. If that was the case, he should have been fired a long time ago. He was fired because the police, so-called union, said that they were not properly armed to deal with the protesters. That's what the black mayor of Baltimore fired Anthony Batts over. I mean, it's crazy what's happening in this country. So we need to get behind the Moore families and the Perez family, make sure the ILWU is behind them. Let's get the rest of the labor movement behind it, and let's put an end to these racist police killings. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say a few things before we open it up for discussion. What date was that? After the march, I received a phone call from Tim Redmond, who is a reporter for, 48, it's called 48 Heels, a blog site. And he asked me, did I have any comments on the San Francisco Police Officers Association's statement about me? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I had no idea. And so he told me, and he sent me the article, and Martin Halloran of the San Francisco Police Officers Association wrote a letter to the San Francisco Labor Council, basically saying, we can give out copies too if you like here, basically saying it was unconscionable that I said I was proud of the ILW's history of resistance. It was unconscionable. Yeah, might as well. But I just thought it was very odd because nothing about SFPD was ever mentioned here at ILWU or anything of the sort. And I had no relations with the Police Officers Association in any regards. And I've learned a lot since May 1st, let's put it that way. And I'd be wrong not to tell you, since you've come out, and I'm so grateful that everyone's come out, and our own union didn't support a lot of stuff. And I found this out after the reporter called our international. So our international and our local, I'm quite sure, knew of all this, and no one came to me and said anything, had my back or anything about it. It was very discouraging, but like I said, I've learned a lot since. But it was an attack on myself personally and the ILW, and nobody, like I said, from the international and the local here brought it to anyone's attention other than me responding to the reporter's question. And I just felt like, you know, I'm angry. I mean, I'm angry more than anything, but at the same time, it just shows you, you know, how things go. And the bottom up is true, but unfortunately, until we change this culture, Local 10, I mean, it's my union, and I'm not afraid to say it. I mean, I do have some support, but unfortunately, we have succumbed to a top-down mentality. And it's very sad. And until things really slap our members directly in the face, I don't think much is going to change. I mean, we do have members who are dedicated, but it's far and few in between. And if your family members are union, I would just encourage them to stay active, because that's the only way things will change.
Question that the sister just raised, Clarissa.
Yes.
Yeah. Is a very legitimate question. And that ties directly into the point that Sister Stacey made about the local. I mean, and she may not know this, but she's going to find out. There's always been struggles in ILWU Local 10 between reactionary top-down forces and bottom-up. That's not anything new. The fact that you recognize it, and the fact that you are, what's your registration number?
10-36.
There is a reality today in terms of our labor movement that's different from how it was when Brother Howard and when my father were here. They came out of the Depression, Jim Crow. People came off the cotton fields and went to work here at Local 10. Josh knows what I'm talking about. Local 10 is a focal point because Local 10 still operates as a democratic rank and file union. And despite our warts, we're able to do things that are only a glimmer in the minds of many, many others. They're trying to forget rank and file action. But to your point, Sister Clarissa, it's true. The rank and file is paying attention to this too. And they want to know, why aren't other people doing what we do? And it's a legitimate question. But it begs the question as to why they're not doing it. Because I can tell you right now, it would be very, very difficult for Daggett, that's the head of the ILA, not to listen to what Kenny Riley and that local had to say right now. The eyes of the world are on Charleston, South Carolina. And that local is the most powerful unionized body of workers in the South.
Right.
It's the most powerful in the South. And that's one of the largest and productive ports in the country. If you're not willing to stand up for your own rank and file, I don't know what's going to move you. Do they have to attack that union hall? Does somebody in that local have to be assassinated before they do something? I'm just putting it out there. It's getting worse.
Easy now.
I'm posing a question. I appreciate what you're saying, Brother Gerald, but I'm posing a question. And if we look at Charleston, South Carolina, for those of you who are history majors or know anything about history, one of the first to pull out to secede from the United States, the Citadel, which is the large military school, was built to put down any future slave rebellions. That's why they built that institution. You got people right now in the Charleston State House who are arguing that the war, the Civil War, was about northern aggression. Any kind of foolishness. And that church, the AME church, is linked to our history of black liberation in this country. None of this shit is happening by accident.
No.
So, to answer your question, Sister Larissa, that is the $64,000. That's the question that I've been waiting. I've been in contact with Leonard and Kenny for weeks now. They wanted us to wait until they buried the dead, and I understand that. But we can't pray our way out of this one.
Oh, buddy.
But your question is a burning question. And anytime we go to that mic and start talking about doing something, the first question that's going to come up from the reactionary force is, what are they doing in Charleston? That's a legitimate question. And when Charleston says, we want to shut it down, get Bob McElrath on the phone. We want to shut it down, Bob. That's what we want to do. To let working people in this country know that we got power. If these ships are not worked, global economy stops. But maybe we can now start having some real relevant discussion in this country about income inequality. We're not going to get it from the Democrats and the Republicans. So if you got power and you're afraid to use it,
Shame on you.
I'll let it go. Thank you, Sister Stacey, for letting me talk. I'm going to have to leave right now. I want to thank all of you for your attention. And thank you, Brother Gerald, for keeping me on my toes. But anything that I've said today, I'm perfectly okay with that. Thank you.
I just wanted to confirm what they were talking about as far as the police being not workers. Obviously, I work for BART, if you don't know, ATU 1555. But we sat at the table and we also negotiated their contract. And they have a Me Too clause. And they get every benefit that we get. But yet and still, their police chief organized an investigation of my strike organizer and brought up charges to him from the DA. And just like Uncle Bobby referred to earlier, they said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Moore, was it, that you had to wait four years for a court date? And then so they want everybody to go away. So that's what they did with George. They're like, we're going to waive time. And then our attorneys, that are the same attorneys that represent ILWU and also AC Transit and ATU 1555. Exactly. They also urged us to waive time for George, even though there were no charges there, okay, while they were billing us per hour. So the attorneys that represent us at the table, as well as law enforcement, they are not with us. Okay, and the other thing that they work to do is that when they're exacting harm on people of color or the working class, what they do is they do it it's systematic, okay, and it's not a one-prong plan, it's a few prongs in there. Okay, and this is what they do. When we tried to do the strike, they imposed injustices on us because what they did was first they killed Oscar Grant. Okay, then secondly, they put all the station agents who are predominantly African American women, minority people of color, okay, and they put us on the front lines for all the protests. And when they're tear gassing and they're closing down everything and everybody's saying, coming to me saying, you're the reason for the fall of the black man and all of these things. I'm the person that's accountable for this because I'm the face of BART. So when it comes time for me to negotiate my contract, and I've stood tall and I've represented this company and I've done this and I've done that, now I'm no good and I'm the villain too. But they don't want me to unite with labor because we have the community on our side. Never in history, let me just back up a minute.
And I don't want to make this about the strike because it's not about the strike. It's about the general economy and the community. So if we don't have work, we don't have community. And if they're killing our people, and then systematically the ones that they don't kill, they're sending to prison because it's a big business and it's an institutionalized corporation, okay, this is systematic. And this is something that we need to stand up to. But the reason it's not happening is because people are afraid. They're afraid. No one wants to step out and lose their cushy little job because you're not going to be able to feed your family. You know, I have a daughter too. Everyone has a mortgage. You have this, you have that. But then one thing, when I signed up for my job, I agreed to do my job, but part of it was not sacrificing my dignity. And that's something that I won't do. So, with that being said, and I'm going to take this back to 1975 and the fight, the reason why I have it. On Easter Sunday of 1975, I went to Santa Rita prison with my mother to visit my brother. And he was there dead. And we had to identify his body. And my brother had never been in trouble his entire life, okay? And he developed an ulcer when he was in prison at the time, and they were supposed to send him for medical care. They didn't send him to medical care, they sent him to Big Greystone. He was raped, he was sodomized, and they found him hanging in a cell. My mother, who didn't read or write English, and who was a maid, and who was here with 4 children, mixed children, which wasn't in vogue as it is now today, in the 70s, 75, she fought the court system, and she won, and she beat them, and she proved wrongful death. Okay, so this is where my fight comes from because I saw that. And then today, 40 years later, Geraldine Bluford, who I grew up with, her son, Adam Bluford Jr. is killed. You know, so everywhere I've turned, you know, I've also buried a husband in this. So I know what it is. It comes from here. So I can't stop fighting. But the reason why people don't fight is because they are afraid, they are comfortable, and until they feel it, and until they hurt, there's nothing. They haven't lost anything. So there is no incentive.
Well, my name is Daryl Washington, and I'm an employee of Recology here in San Francisco. I don't know if anyone has heard of my story. There was a noose hung up at my place of work, and everything that has transpired since that time, which is back in December 2013, has been basically hell for myself because I'm the one who stood up and went against this action that they didn't take any action against the employee and helping other workers. I'm asking for help from ILWU. We're planning right now, and everyone here, we're planning an action right now with Steve and whatnot and a few other folks in the neighborhood and the communities to do something against Recology because they still don't seem to understand that what happened was wrong. And they still don't care about the workers. My fight is not for me, it's for everybody that's at Recology, all the workers, to get justice. You know, it's not about me. I've been offered cash that I turned down because I didn't have the right amount of them helping the workers and changing, you know, the open door policy that they have. So I turned it down. I didn't want it because it's about the workers, not so much about cash. So that's really what I wanted to say. If you can go on to the New Bayview KPFA, there's a interview that we just did because I don't want to take too much time giving the whole history. But the New Bayview, you can look up my name, Daryl Washington, Recology, and Noose, and that'll pull up everything on Google or whatnot, and that'll pull everything that you need to know up. But like I said, we're asking for help in the future. The near future, we're going to do something against Recology to take action.